Let's preview tonight's Spurs Wolves game. And is it panic time in San Antonio?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Emily Swallow, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Great to have you back. Happy Friday, everybody. TGIF weekend is here. We'll get you to this last work day on Locked On Spurs. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts. Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app. So many platforms for you to pick. Locked On Spurs and subscribe. What are we talking about today? We're going to be looking at tonight's game, Spurs Wolves. Can the Spurs snap their 3-game losing streak? Later on the show, we're going to have our guest, Rudy Campos, of Sweep the League. We're going to go over if it's time to panic in San Antonio. Oh my goodness, the sky is falling. It's time. Jump off the ledge, jump off bridges. And what is up with Wemby's struggles? Is it just part of his NBA education or is it deeper? We'll find out what Rudy has to say, as well as myself, on Locked On Spurs. But first, your Spurs and Wolves tangle tonight in San Antonio. Yeah, the Spurs, they got that 3-game losing streak, right? You know, hopefully they'll get that erased out of their body, out of their mouths. You know, has not been pretty for the Spurs in the last 3 games. Obviously, the L's hurt, but it's the way they've been losing, getting just curb stomp. Indiana, 40 points, down by 30 points versus the Knicks. Not fun in San Antonio. So let's look at tonight's matchup. The Spurs come in tonight 3-5. The Wolves are 5-2. Yes, the Wolves are 5-2, third best team in the West, and they're getting it done with defense. They are among, not the best in most defensive statistical categories. Spurs have their work cut out for them. Tonight's game also marks the first in-game season tournament game for the Spurs. So those City Edition jerseys, those new ones, the Bill Miller's looking ones, if you're in San Antonio, they're coming out tonight, as well as that really funky court that many have seen. So expect that. The old hemisphere vibes. Personally, I don't see that, but whatever. It is what it is. Spurs fans are having mixed feelings about those new edition, City Edition jerseys. So as mentioned, the Spurs are coming off a road loss versus the Knicks, 126-105. It was a trouncing. Wemby, 14 points, 9 rebounds in his MSG debut. Sohan, 16 points, 6 rebounds. Zach Collins with 11 points. Trey Jones with 12 points off the bench. McDermott, 11 points off the bench as well. By the way, Trey Jones, 5 assists. After the game, Keldon Johnson said that this team is keeping their heads up high, that they're not going to get too high or too low. They're not going to panic. More on that later. They understand it's a long season, and nobody should get too overexcited for the start of the season. We'll ask our guests if that's a good vibe to have as the season moves on. As mentioned, the uniforms, if you're on Jersey Watch, the Spurs would be debuting their new City Edition jerseys that pay homage to the 1968 Hemisphere World's Fair in San Antonio. Mixed feelings on that, as mentioned, from Spurs fans. They don't like it. Some do. Maybe it'll grow on them as they were more often than not. So what are we looking at today? Let's look at some things to key on for tonight's game, Spurs Wolves. So the Wolves, start off with them. They're the guests here in San Antonio. 4-game winning streak. Yep, they've won 4 straight. But if there's hope for the Spurs tonight to erase that losing streak that they're on, the Wolves are on a losing streak as well, with 2 games dropped on the road. So the Wolves, although they're on a 4-game winning streak, they've also lost the last 2 games away from Minnesota. Now, let's talk about that defense. The Wolves, they've recorded more blocks than their opponents in 3 straight games. They get it done on defense. They, with the Towns and Rudy Gobert, just the defensive mindset they have out in Minnesota, it's showing this season, and they're getting it done. So there you go, something for the Spurs to look out for in tonight's Spurs game. Now, defense again, the Wolves, that's how good they are. They're undefeated this season when they hold their opponents to 110 points or less. So keep an eye on that scoreboard. If it's inching towards over 110, Spurs got a shot, statistically, at least according to what the numbers say. But if they're hovering somewhere way below that, well, could be a 4th loss in a row for the Silver and Black. All right, another thing to keep an eye on for tonight's game is keep an eye on the score at halftime. So far, this just to tell you how much things are a little amiss right now in San Antonio. The Spurs, whenever they're leading at home, at halftime, they're 0-2. They've blown leads. So just because the Spurs are up at halftime and you're leaving your seat to go get a stop at the concession stand, get another beer, get in a drink, don't be resting on your laurels. So far, when they're up at home, they blow leads. So keep an eye on that. Also, the Spurs defense has not been great. We'll talk about that in a while, but I want to key on something for tonight's game. The Spurs have six consecutive games with a lower 3-point percentage than their opponents. So more on that. And the Spurs haven't really been good at defending the three line, as Indiana, as the Knicks, but they're not helping themselves either. They're not connecting on three shots. So keep an eye on that. That is your Spurs Wolves quick preview. When we get back, we're going to be looking at if it's panic time in San Antonio, and also what is up with Wemby. He is struggling the last few games. Coming up next, right here on Locked On Spurs.
Hey guys, this is Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia. It's morphin' time.
We spend a lot of time together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for that connection we have, and today I want to chat to be a little bit more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply of ED medications. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, Revatio prescription. And this is possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. So don't be caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. Jace handles everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy, medication delivery, ongoing consultation, and care. So go to jacemedical.com right now. Use the code Locked On for $20 off your purchase. And as promised, he is here, everybody. Rudy Campos, sweep the league, rocking the hat that everybody loves. He is Rudy Campos. Make sure to follow him on X at Sweep the League. He also helps and runs Sweep the League show. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. A lot of stuff going on Rudy's neck of the woods. But Rudy, let's talk about if it's panic time in San Antonio. Heading into tonight's game, Spurs Wolves on the 3-game losing skid. They're getting curb stomped. Indiana just pasted them for 44 points at one point. That was the largest lead. The Knicks just drop kicked them to 30-point deficit during the game. Not to mention the fact, too, that Toronto came back and erased their 20-point lead in San Antonio to beat them in overtime. Rudy, is it panic in San Antonio?
You know, if you're on X, it's panic every day because if every loss means that the house is burning, everything's going up in flames. But the whole panic thing for me is not, for me personally, it's not a panic time at all. I truly expected this kind of season from the get-go. I know I've Locked On Spurs on past episodes. I said, my win percentage was probably wins was like 28 wins at the most, 28-32. So it's still right on track for that for me. The panic part that I see a lot of people going with is the lineup situation. Mm-hmm. So if the lineup continues to stay the way that it is, then yes, it is kind of panic time right there because you would figure Pop would try to, mix it up, try to bring different guys off the bench, start different guys, but it hasn't happened quite yet. Overall, Jeff, there's really no need to panic. I mean, you're still the youngest team in the NBA, so you can't really push that panic button. Now, if you have some veterans in here with the young guys and you're still struggling this bad, I can see it. But right now, I mean, you barely started the season. There's no panic at all.
Yeah, look, you're right. They are a young team. Wemby talked about it after the loss to the Knicks. Popovich was caught on camera saying it's going to take time for this team to get together. Keldon Johnson, as mentioned earlier in the preview, said that they're not panicking. They're not worried, that they're playing for each other, that nobody should be panicking. And I understand, what you're saying. It's too early for hitting the panic button, jumping off the ledge, all those cliches. But I understand where the Spurs fans are coming from, that segment that are scratching their head saying, what is going on? As they're twiddling their thumbs and kind of chuckling with laughter and danger, like, I know you're saying it's not time to panic, but I'm going to lean on those numbers for a bit and show you maybe perhaps why maybe Spurs fans should be just beating a little bit of sweat heading into tonight's game in Minnesota. So let's look at their 3-game losing streak. So we all know 3-game losing streak, not fun. The defense is just atrocious. The opponents are averaging 123.7 points per game on your silver and black, Rudy. Or the Spurs. The Spurs. Oh, let's do that again. 3, 2, 1. Defensively, Rudy, they are just atrocious. Just horrible. So we look at their last 3 games. They were allowing 133.7 points per game, Rudy. You heard that right, 133.7. What are they mustering up on the offensive end? 110.7. That is just too big of a differential on the scoring side of the court. They're getting out rebounded 44-39 in the last 3 games. Correction. I'm going to soften that blow. They're getting out rebounded 48-42 in the last 3 games. And their assist, they're trailing the opponents. The opponents are averaging about 31 a game. The Spurs are about 29. I just see a bad mix going on right now. I see a bad mix of horrible defense, bad perimeter defense, bad offensive scoring. Sure, maybe that's a bit not having Devin Vassell in the lineup. That hurts. But they have capable scorers. Wemby has been quiet. We'll talk about him in a bit. Keldon, he's been doing what he can. I just see something's not off. Something's wrong. I'm not panicking, but I'm starting to sweat a little bit, thinking like, okay, this is not going to get any easier because they got Minnesota tonight. They could be facing a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah, they definitely can't. They can't. I mean, I see the panic on there.
And finally, and I'll let you maybe rebuttal right now. In the last 3 games, opponents are averaging 45% from the 3 line. Your Spurs are averaging 29% from behind the arc. It is a 3-point happy league, and they're not cutting the mustard. Rudy, what is up?
So you're right on everything you said. You're right, and that equals panic. I mean, we're not gonna lie, that equals a panic. But where I see the panic button is if you were a fan or someone going into this season thinking that they were going to be a playoff team, a play-in team, then you're panicking right now because you're not liking what you're seeing. I mean, these are ABA numbers, Jeff, when you're averaging
he said ABA numbers.
And you're giving up 130. These are all ABA numbers. So the thing that I look at it is this. You're talking about the defensive side. The lineup in place right now, the starting 5 is, and I'm going to say it's an atrocious defensive lineup. I mean, Jeremy Sohan's supposed to be a good defender, which he is. Wemby's supposed to be a good defender, which he is. Devin Vassell is a capable defender. Keldon is an okay defender, and then who else do you have?
Trey Jones.
I mean, Trey Jones is a defender as well. But when you look at your starting 5, it's kind of like, well, you're playing big ball for what reason? Yeah. I mean, I think your smallest guy is probably Devin Vassell at 6'4".
You're talking about the starting lineup.
The starting lineup,
Okay.
So, I mean, even Zach Collins is not a great defender. I mean, you don't have a good defensive team, and that's where something you don't really put into the San Antonio Spurs mix ever. I mean, they've always been one of the better defensive teams in the league. But when they've been the better defensive team, they've had an anchor, a center at anchor, whether it be Tim Duncan or David Robinson. I mean, you can even go as far as like Obricio and, a lot of these guys who are in the paint. We don't see Wemby in the paint at all. He's all over the court. So that's kind of going where, okay, it's not, I can't blame coaching. I can't blame all this stuff yet because I understand the season just started. But when you're talking about panic on the defensive end, that is a really big cause for concern. Screw the beads coming down your face, Jeff. I am like an airplane when he takes over the plane. He is just massively sweating when it comes to the Spurs defense because
but you're holding on to the handle. You're
holding on to the handle.
Yeah.
You don't want to let go. But eventually that handle is going to break like it did in the movie, and it's all chaos from there. So,
here's where it could break. Here's where it could break.
Mm-hmm.
They got Minnesota tonight. Again, one of the best in the league, especially in the West right now in defensive stats. They just show it. So they're good. They're riding a 4-game winning streak and all. Okay, so there's a good chance this team could lose tonight at the Frost. All right. So here's why you could panic a little bit. Or be like the sweaty guy from Airplane at the body control. Then they have to host Miami Heat the following game night after the T-Wolves game. Then so there's 2 possible games right there that they could drop. Okay, so then after that, you have the Thunder with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and crew.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the upstart Kings. This team could possibly be facing a longer losing streak than just a 3-game one. The schedule is not helping them. Losing against Toronto the way they did should not have happened.
Yeah.
That was theirs to win. And they just blew it.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, you give them one of those games, versus Indiana, where Indiana just could not be stopped from the 3 line. But how do you let the New York Knicks that were heading into that game? They were one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league in this early season, and they just went off. So that's why I think there is some panic in San Antonio, because you got the schedule, the way they're playing. They got, as the season progresses, these teams are going to start settling in, Rudy. They're going to start getting familiar, while the Spurs are sputtering right now. And, now's a chance for the Spurs to pounce on these teams, and so far they're not doing that. Rudy, your thoughts?
Yeah, you're right. And the thing with I remember telling you a long time ago was, in order for this team to be a play-in team, not a playoff team, a play-in team, was they'd have to make a trade. They'd have to get a bona fide all-star or potential all-star on this team to help these young guys out. You don't have a closer out there. Wemby's not going to be your closer right now. He's still getting acclimated. But you're right, man. I mean, you're talking. When I looked at the first 20 games, I expected them to be honestly right around 5-15 to start these 20 games. Okay. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to win, more than 5 or 6 games. It's very capable, but you're losing to teams that, like you said, that you probably shouldn't be losing with the Knicks. They got to win over the Rockets, but remember that Rockets win was not easy. It was only like a 4-point win.
They had to rally, right, and win in overtime.
They had to rally, and then one of those Suns games was a rally too. The other one they pretty much handled, which is kind of weird because the Suns.
For as much as that Suns game was awesome, they nearly blew it in that game too. The Suns came back to tie it at 116.
Yeah, they did.
They hung on to dear life. It took a Wemby heroics for them to keep that going.
And it shows is what what I'm saying is they need a closer. If for them to be taken serious, they got to get a closer. And who it could be, I have no idea right now. But
it could be Campos. That's what I'm thinking.
I wish I could play again. I'm not that far away to my weight loss yet. I can't really shoot up anymore. But you're right. I mean, these first 20 games of the season is going to be brutal. I wish I had a cigar. I would sit back and smoke my cigar because I'm kind of like, this is what I expected for them to be. But for Spurs fans out there, it's going to be a tough season. I'm not going to lie. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's going to be a tough season. Enjoy the ride. But yeah, you're right, man. The brutal. If their defense doesn't get any better, these first 20 games are going to be horrible. And once teams get, and you know what, Jeff? Let's not lie. Teams already know how to defend Wemby. You take him out into the perimeter, you body him up out there. Yeah, he can't get inside. That's the best way. And we've seen Grant Williams doing that earlier with Dallas. We've seen a lot of teams already do that to him. You just got to be physical, take him outside the paint. When he's inside the paint, he's a better player. Spurs win a lot of time. They play really, really well. But, that's the thing is that without the great defensive that we're seeing for the San Antonio Spurs, this season is going to be tough. These first 20 games are going to be brutal.
Giving you some numbers now as far as the defensive metrics here. The Spurs are 27th in the league in defensive rebounds. They're 23rd in offensive rebounds. They're 29th in defense. They've already allowed 126 points or more in this season so far. Not good. They're 20th in three-pointers made everything that you think that the Spurs should excel at, like, to get everything you think that should be clicking right now is not clicking right now. Yeah. Now, is there a bright line to this right now? Sure, there is. It's still a young season. Mm-hmm. They are the youngest team in the league. Wemby is just 19 years old. For those of y'all thinking he'd be doing that turnaround of the franchise like Robinson did and Duncan did, no. You were sadly mistaken. That was not going to happen.
When Wemby came into the league, he came into a team where the average age is what, like 24?
Yeah, they all should be. Some of them can't even drink yet.
These guys should be fresh out of college, most of them.
Yeah, or at least finishing their junior or senior year already.
Exactly. So this is a whole different project. So for everybody that you're right, that it came in and said, "Hey, this team's he's gonna turn it around. They're gonna be that was never the case, in my opinion. Never.
Yeah. Now, will he help improve some wins? Of course. I mean, you can't go anywhere but up after a 22-win season. That's what at least they're projected to do. So that's progress, but there was not going to be that franchise turnaround. Robinson took a 21 or 22 win season one year into 56.
56.
Yeah. Duncan, the same thing, like a 30-ish, I think. So. I mean, I'm sure Rudy, you can correct me, but it was like 50 plus wins the next season with Duncan. But then Duncan had Robinson, Duncan had Elliott, Duncan had Mario Ellie, Duncan had Avery Johnson, proven vets. Yeah. But again, it's not doom and gloom. Not yet. We're not there yet, everybody. There are positive things the Spurs are doing. They're third in assists, so they're definitely trying to get everybody involved. They're eighth in blocks. Credit Wemby for that. And they're sixth in field goal made. So there are some signs that are good for them, but it's just the key things in today's league. Defending the three line, because it's a three-line happy league era, and just basic defense, they're just getting blown out of the water. It's a big reason why the Spurs are on a losing streak heading into tonight's game versus Minnesota. Are you panicking, everybody? You can let us know. You can let me know on YouTube at the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. You can let Rudy know on X at Sweep the League. Coming up next, we're going to now look at Wemby. What is ailing Wemby? What is wrong with him? Is he already hitting the rookie wall? Just how many games? Less than 10 games in? That's coming up next right here on Locked On Spurs. PrizePicks is the daily fantasy sport DFS platform in North America. They are the easiest, most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you versus the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and start watching the winnings roll in. Look, PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So for football and basketball games, you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return and after that in the second half, well, then that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sport platform with injury insurance policy. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from 2 or just different sports or leagues. So, for example, Keldon Johnson and Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3 points made and receptions. Fun times you can have at PrizePicks. PrizePicks has quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, a huge selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. You got to get it right now. I go there. I go check out how the Spurs are faring in the PrizePicks situation thing there. It's all good. Go to PrizePicks right now. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. The code is LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Also want to talk to you about Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. Go to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee right now, San Antonio, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. That's in the 281-1604 area. They're open every day, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. No excuse for you not to go get yourselves the Mudslinger, which is a signature drink, the OG OJ, which is the old school Orange Julius, recreated only at Mudslingers. They even have specialty drinks like the Sub-Zero. That's tip of the cap to UTSA's Frank Harris. They have the Alien. You know who that is. Victor Wembanyama's drink at Mudslinger. It's a full can of Red Bull, green apple, kiwi, very delicious drink. They have dairy alternatives, a big menu. They have mini donuts. They have hot drinks, cold drinks, the Red Bull infused lightning bolt series. That'll get your day going. They have it all over at Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. Over 300 5-star reviews, cannot be wrong. Go visit them right now. They are fan interactive. They are a proud local sponsor of Locked On Spurs, and the first, mind you, and they love helping to serve the San Antonio community. Interact with them on social media, on their Facebook page, on their Instagram page, on their X page, on their Threads page. Pick a platform. They are there at Muslinger, SATX. Go to Muslinger's drive-through coffee right now, San Antonio. Life is too short for bland coffee.
Hey, this is Chris Sabat, and you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. During the break, he and I got really frustrated about Wemby. Really frustrated about Wemby. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. What is ailing Wembanyama? Look, technically, he's dropping double-doubles. He had a double-double versus the Knicks, but he's clearly struggling from the field. You're perhaps maybe seeing his teenage years, youth being shown. In other words, outside of that Phoenix game, there really hasn't been that many Wemby games that everybody was anticipating. Relatively quiet. Does he have a little highlight moment here and there? Yeah, sure he does. But as far as that, oh my goodness, look what he did. Phoenix crowd, you got yourself a show. That hasn't happened. What is ailing Wemby, Rudy, in the last few games?
So, there's a lot of stuff ailing Wemby. Easy stuff you can pick out from, just being too perimeter happy to being, players being physical with him, even shorter players, shorter, stacky players being Grant Williams, like I mentioned earlier, being physical with him, pushing him out of the paint, making him uncomfortable, anything to even his zone, where a zone he should be able to he busted it easy, like I said. But with me, Jeff, it's kind of a broken record because you see it all the time on X. It's not having a true point guard. And I'm not taking anything away from Jeremy Sohan. He's trying. Pop put him in that position. He's trying his best, and he's doing an okay job. I'm not going to say he's doing terrible. Yeah. He's doing okay, but he's not a true point guard. And I think having a point guard who is a leader of the team, no matter who it is, they're the one that get the team in the flow. They get the players in the right position. They give you the ball in the right position. Yeah. They're able to set you up better than a guy like Jeremy Sohan. Trey Jones in the starting five, since he is your primary point.
Look how choked up Rudy is right now.
Yeah,
he got dirty talk right now. Look at him.
I'm crying over a Duke player. That's terrible.
You're animated right now. You're so frustrated.
I mean, I'm going to a Dookie for all that matters. You got to start the Dookie. I mean, getting Trey Jones in there is going to alleviate a lot of stress from this team because you're going to start the game with a true point guard. And yeah, he's not the answer to starting point guard forever for San Antonio, but he's going to give you a better chance to start the game off on the right foot than Jeremy Sohan will. So the biggest thing for me is to get Wemby more involved, have a better point guard at that position, have one that's a true point guard. That way the team can just kind of go and get in that flow early in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And the numbers back you up. Every time Wemby has 17 or more field goal attempts, the Spurs are 2-0. Whenever he has 21 or more points, the Spurs are 2-0. So in other words, get him the touches so he can produce the points. Yeah. There's right there that's backing you up. Yeah, I agree with you. That's part of what's going on with this situation right now. I also think, and I'll get into my major thing that I think is going on with him. You lose Devin Vassell, so he loses perhaps this. I mean, no knock on Keldon, but perhaps arguably the one of the better players on the roster for him to lean on. For me, it's you hit it, or he's a little 3-point happy. How many times do we see him get the ball in the paint and he kind of roams back out to the 3 line, or he's on the break and instead of just diving to the rim or calling for the ball in a fast break, or just lob it up. He'll settle for a perimeter shot. So for me, that's what it is. I would look at some of his numbers here. So look at the last 3 games because we're talking about the losing streak here. He's attempting 5.3 3-point attempts, and he's only making 1. That's it. Field goal attempts in the losing streak, he's only averaging 14 touches. This is for your number 1 pick. The heralded generational player is only getting 14 touches in the last 3 games. He's only making 4.7. He's not connected on them. So he's in a shooting slump. He's not getting the touches. He's a little 3-point happy. He averaged about 25% in the last 3 games during this losing streak. But yeah, still too early. Only 8 games in his young NBA career. Now you look at overall his numbers, they're respectable. 29 minutes per game, 18.8 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, a whopping 2.4 blocks and a steal a game. But that 3-point shooting is a little off right now. Even overall through 8 games, 29% from the 3 line. Mm-hmm. Even if you look at his total 8 games, he's attempting 5 a game and only making 1.5. So I would like to see him get established more in the paint. And I'm not saying don't shoot the 3, Wemby. Obviously that's the trend now. Big shooting 3s. Ask Joker, ask Chet Holmgren, ask Wemby. They definitely can knock him down. But love to see a little bit more paint dominance because I don't see anybody stopping him. Is there anything else that you think might be ailing Wemby in the last few games?
I think it's the physicality. We're seeing a lot more teams being physical with him. And that's something that was a concern of mine coming into the season.
Even Mitchell Robinson kind of threw him a couple of elbows during the game. Yeah, he was throwing them.
It's not, this isn't. See, there's a difference between international ball and the ball that he played internationally. Mm-hmm. There's tougher competition in certain international leagues, which he wasn't a part of. So coming to the NBA, these guys, first off, they don't want to be shown up. Let's be real. They don't want to be shown up by a rookie. Yeah. Second of all, it's a tougher league. It's a faster league. It's a more physical league. So we were wondering how is he going to take the physicality. He's done okay. He's not done great. He's done okay. But when you got guys being able to body him, knock him out of the paint, keep him outside of the paint as well, to where you make him more comfortable to be a shooter, he's still not comfortable to be a shooter. Yeah, he's going to knock down 1-3 a game, or he's going to knock down a couple of jump shots. I think the biggest thing is just the physicality with Wembanyama, and that's something that's going to take a little bit of time for him to get used to. Real quick, to give Spurs fans a hope here, man, I'm going to give you some numbers real quick. Wembanyama, 18-8 and 2 blocks a game. Tim Duncan, first month of the season of his rookie season, he was at 15 points, 11 boards, and 2.5 blocks. Robinson, 20 points, 8 boards, 2.5 blocks. I mean, the stats are similar, but that's where it says the teams are different. Those 2 guys came into established organizations.
If you're going to hit the panic button, maybe put it to the side, wait till we're inching closer to the All-Star break. Then you can decide whether or not to open up the glass case and smash that button, or hopefully you don't, because the Spurs finally got their rhythm. But this is going to take a while for everybody to get going. We'll see how the Spurs fare tonight versus Minnesota at the Frost Center. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Tell us about Sweep.
Yeah, so actually we're on a bit of a hiatus at Sweep right now. We're taking a little break only because it's my fault, Jeff. I'm moving, so I'm getting a house here pretty soon. So once we get that done, thank you. Once we get that all squared away here in the next couple of weeks, Sweep the League is going to be just rocking and rolling all over again with football. A lot of Wemby talk, a lot of Spurs talk. We're trying to convince a lot of you guys to stay off the ledge. It's going to be okay, we promise. And if you can't get off the ledge, remember the Cowboys are, no, we can't talk to you about the Cowboys. We're just going to talk you off the ledge somehow. That's on Sweep the League, man. That's right. Follow Rudy on X at Sweep the League. Thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, YouTube, Ken's 5 Plus app. Pick a platform. We are there, including the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll be back next week with more Wemby, more silver and black, all that you can take. So for Rudy Campos, you know what, Rudy, nobody will push you around in the NBA. You definitely got that low center of gravity for sure. Nobody's moving Grant
you.
Williams look.
You got the Grant Williams. He is Rudy Campos. I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.